Welcome to Blackstone River and Canal Heritage State Park. Spring is just around the corner, which means it's time for maple sugaring. Let me show you how to do it. The first thing we're going to need to do is find a maple tree. And luckily enough, right behind me, here by the old Blackstone Canal, we have a very stately maple tree. The first thing that we need to do is extract the sap from the tree, and we're going to do that by tapping the tree, which begins by making a small hole in the bark. I'm going to start with an old-fashioned drill like this, and we're going to drill to a depth about of 1.5 inches into this maple tree. And we also want to drill at an angle so that the sap flows out easily once we've made that hole. All right, we've drilled to a depth of about 1.5 inches. Now that we've made that hole, maple sap is going to start dripping out of there. So one of the things that ensures great flow of sap through the tree actually depends upon the weather. You get the best flow when overnight temperatures drop into the freezing range, which the tree will then draw its fluids back down into its roots. But when the daytime temperature is above freezing, all those fluids rush back up into the top of the tree again, and that's when we see the best flow from our taps. We've already made that tap hole into the tree. The next thing we're going to do is attach the spile. All we do is place the spile into the tree. If we leave it just like this, the sap is just going to drip on the ground. We're going to lose all of it and we can't make maple sugar out of it. To collect it, all we need is an old-fashioned bucket. Can you hear that tap, tap, tap? That's the sound of maple sugaring starting. Now, over the course of the 6-week maple sugaring season, this tree is going to produce about 10 to 20 gallons of maple sap. But this isn't maple syrup yet. While the sap is collecting in the bucket, we don't want anything else to fall in there that might affect the flavor of the maple syrup. So we place a cover right on top of the collection bucket. That keeps dirt and bugs from falling into the collection bucket so that when we bring it over to the evaporator, we're going to have some nice clean sap to pour in. Here's the sap that we collected from our tree, and before we send it to the sugar shack, we have one more step. There's all sorts of stuff caught in the bucket that we don't necessarily want in our maple syrup. So our next step is going to be straining the sap through this cheesecloth. We're going to filter out everything that we don't want going into the evaporator, like these few bugs that I'm seeing here caught on my strainer. And here I have a bucket of strained sap. We're going to take this right over to the evaporator.
Welcome to the Sugar Shack at Riverbend Farm. Here we have our strained sap that we're going to be adding to the evaporator. Then so you can just pour it right in. Then we have to check the fire to make sure everything is cooking properly. So now during this time I will add a couple logs. It is a little hot. Alright. Then down below we can open up the damper to increase the heat. And now we wait. So for the evaporator, you want it to be a wider, flatter surface so it'll cook off evenly and cook a lot faster than you would as compared to a large bowl. So typically for this sap to boil down to syrup, you need 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. And now during this process, the sap is going to boil down to eventually get to the point where we're going to get our finished maple syrup. During this process, we're gonna, as you can see on the top, there's gonna be some foam. We just scoop that right out to get our nice clean finished product.